Today on the Topping Show, Bud Light hires comedian Shane Gillis to try to boost their sales. We'll see if it actually works. James O'Keefe undercover exposes the White House admitting they can't get rid of Kamala Harris, and Biden's dementia is worsening. DeSantis calls for Ilhan Omar to be expelled after she says her main priority is Somalia. Vivek tweet on firing Ronna McDaniel, the head of the RNC, goes viral. General Motors to make hybrids after Mary Bara went all in on EVs. Baltimore Oriels MLB team sold for $1.7 billion. And Peloton stock crashed about 23% last week after their holiday sales came in. It was pretty rough. All of that and much more on The Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of Topping Show is sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their final release twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or business owner, reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of February, so click that button. I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have General Motors to make hybrids again after the EV sales crumbled. Will Mary Bara be fired or ever held accountable? Well, no, probably not. Now, this, as Mary Bara has been the CEO of General Motors for about 10 years, which over her tenure, the stock has dropped around 10% overall, which, again, is the antithesis of pretty much the whole automotive community. They've all done much better. Even the traditional automotive companies such as Ford Motor Company, they've been doing much, much better, both in pretty much every regard. Now, Mary Bara's idea was to make General Motors all EV. The goal for her is to be all of EV for Cadillac by 2030 and all EV for every one of the brands that they owned, which includes Chevrolet, GMC, as well as Cadillac, as well as Buick, all EV by 2035, despite what the consumer wants. Now, that being said, they've been pushing hard towards that goal, investing billions of dollars in infrastructure, engineering capabilities, and they have had some volume of success. They're still losing money on it. They're projected to perhaps make a profit on EVs in this year, 2024. But this is coming in as consumers, they're all starting to shift away. So the early adopters for EVs, I would argue that those customers are gone. They already have their EVs. They're early adopters. They bought their Teslas. A couple of them got some Porsche Taycans. And a couple of them went with the other options like Kia. They're doing good in that regard. But GM, they did have the Bolt, which is ironically named because it did burst into flames multiple times. But, I mean, GM went all in on EVs. The only hybrid they make now, which I try not to throw up when I say this, is a Chevrolet Corvette. Which, not only should that only be an ICE engine with a V8, it should also have a stick shift. So, to me, the Corvette has become the ugly stepchild, or whatever pejorative term you like to use. It's not my Corvette, as I would say, since every good Corvette, I would argue, has 3 pedals, manual transmission. The engine going to the back was controversial enough, but I partially digress. If you look at what the consumers are asking for these days, the biggest growing category in the automotive industry is hybrids, aka plug-in hybrid technologies, where you have an internal combustion engine as well as a battery. Personally, not a fan because, again, once the battery goes dead, that's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars, in addition to the ICE engine. So, when I look for the best ROI, I still tell people if they want something that'll last a million miles, get a Toyota, get a Honda with an ICE engine, and do the little changes, take care of it. However, consumers are shifting. They more and more want hybrids. That's why Toyota is investing, I believe, around $8 billion into hybrid technologies. And you see Ford Motor Company decreasing their battery capability in terms of they reduced their battery manufacturing capacity by 40% this year for EVs. Now they're investing more in hybrids as well. Now, GM, not only do they only make 2 cars a stick shift, which breaks my heart in and of itself, while they are great vehicles, they used to sell a lot more. Now they do only have the Cadillac CT4, CT5, and the V Blackwings are quite remarkable feats of engineering. But again, General Motors, they have no hybrids. So it looks like the last hybrid they did away with was in 2019, which was the Chevrolet Volt, which, in terms of, was it Robert Wagner, the previous CEO, that, even though it wasn't an immediate hit, I still think that was a good direction for General Motors. And again, even though it's not my preference as a consumable vehicle, just because, again, it did showcase the technologies at the time and got them in the direction of the shifting in consumer preferences. So, and the GM and the Volt long term was pretty popular. And that was an instance where it had an ICE engine, but more moderately revolutionary in terms of mass production and being a company that was slightly different. The gas engine was only used to charge the batteries, whereas most traditional hybrids, they have the system for the drivetrain set up where that it actually just switches back and forth. Now, it'll be interesting to see. Let's see. When it comes to Mary Bara, she still claims it won't be full EV by 2035, even in the spite of consumer preference shifting and them losing money. Now, she says, quote, "To be clear, GM remains committed to eliminating tailpipe emissions from our light-duty vehicles by 2035, but in the interim, deploying plug-in technologies in strategic segments will deliver some of the environmental benefits of EVs as the nation continues to build the charging infrastructure," unquote. Yeah, although that was from a quarterly earnings call in 2020. Yeah, I'm talking about Q4 sales in 2000. So, and it's nice. It's kind of funny. It looks like she's having a little caveat. They say light-duty vehicles, so perhaps they'll continue to make trucks with diesel engines and gas engines because they want to make a profit. Spoiler alert, that's where a huge chunk of profits come from the automotive community is SUVs, trucks, crossovers, all those. Very little money in small entry-level vehicles, which is why so many of them have stopped production of them. And it'll be interesting to see, do you think this is going to be in the right direction as they try to do yet again play catch up with the industry? And again, should Mary Bara be held accountable, or is this because of the board of directors? I mean, they keep making calls that are not beneficial for the industry, the consumers. They help the employees out or the union out by giving them the biggest contract in history. But again, that also increased the price of the car for everyone who's buying a General Motors vehicle. So it'll be interesting to see, will these hybrids help them regain their realm of being one of the top automobile companies in the world, which again, they still are. They actually, although they failed so bad during the pandemic, Toyota beat them for North American sales for, I believe it's the first time ever actually. So it'll be interesting to see what used to be one of the largest automobile companies on the planet and dominated sales, debatably as good as the Patriots did in the sports balls league back in the day. Will they ever really achieve that type of economic dominance in the industry? It'll be interesting to see. But as I always say, time shall tell. Other interesting business news, you have the Baltimore Orioles team sold for $1.7 billion. And according to the internet, that is a sports balls team in the MLB, or the Major League Baseball. Now granted, I don't know how many people know that is really a team. I think most people, when they think of sports balls with MLB, you got the Yankees, the Cubs. They'll be good next year. That's a joke. They won't. It's the Yankees, the Cubs, the White Sox, the Black Sox, Texas Rangers, obviously. I'm sure there's more teams than that, but in terms of marketing, those are the teams that are successful enough or good enough at marketing for me to actually know that they have logos and are teams. Now, the Baltimore Orioles, this was actually thanks to Emma Thorne over at LinkedIn. They noted that private equity billionaire David Rubenstein has signed an agreement to buy the Baltimore Orioles for more than $1.7 billion. Let's see here. Ruben is a Baltimore native, would be the control person for the buyer group that includes legendary Orioles shortstop Cal Ripken Jr. The group would own about 40% of the club and buy out the rest after the death of the current majority owner, Peter Anglos. Anglos, who's 94, bought the team in 1997 for $173 million. So talk about a phenomenal return on investment, which sports ball teams traditionally have become a better and better investment. It is astonishing what type of ROI you get, not just on the sale of the team, but all the things that Americans and people will buy when they're at the game. You got the merchandise, the food. It's a whole industry in and of itself. It's quite fascinating how successful they are, how profitable they are. Now, they also note the Orioles have not reached the World Series since 10 years before that. Jeez Louise. No wonder I haven't heard of them. If you're a fan, let me know in the comments. That, statistically speaking, I don't think that would happen in terms of a comment showing up, but I'd be fascinated to see if it actually does. Now, they also note that the Orioles own about 3/4 of the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network, which holds the local broadcasting rights to their games, and those of the Washington Nationals. Who the hell are they? Is that the Washington Redskins rebranded? Let me see here. Who are the Washington Nationals? They're an American base. Oh, no, okay, it is different. They're the American professional baseball team based in Washington, D.C. The Washington Nationals. All right, interestingly enough. So they own that. It's not clear how that would impact the sale. Robertson had been negotiating with the Anglos family for about 3 years off and on. Let's see here. So it'll be interesting to see how many people continue to tune in. Although, yeah, and again, I know geography plays a huge role in the worship of sports balls teams. Have you ever watched a game with the Orioles, or would you ever cheer for them? Be interested to see if this inspires more sports balls teams to be sold. Recently, you had Mark Cuban selling a majority share of the Dallas Mavericks, which he previously owned, although he's still in a leadership position at the company or sports balls team. So it'll be interesting to see if these have like a domino effect or ripple effect. Traditionally, we don't see a lot of these teams selling. It's a very, granted, the supply of them is very much limited compared to many other business categories. So it'll be interesting to see, how much of that is actually increasing in sales. But as I always say, time shall tell. Now going over to the culture part of the podcast, you have James O'Keefe undercover exposes the White House with an apparent leaker on their cybersecurity team. The irony is palatable to say the least, or hilarious to say the least. So I saw this first on James O'Keefe's Twitter profile. It went viral, as you might say, last week. And he said, quote, "Breaking video, top White House cyber official tells O'Keefe in disguise they can't say it publicly. The White House wants to replace Kamala Harris and confirms President Joe Biden has mental decline. Biden's definitely slowing down." He continues to say, so in terms of the background of who was foolish enough to talk to James O'Keefe, in terms of, I don't want to say this, I can't but wonder if this is almost on purpose on the White House, because this cybersecurity analyst has to either, I can't fathom how mentally vacuous he is, or how foolish he would have to be, one, to not recognize James O'Keefe, because again, all he did, and again, James O'Keefe is a brilliant investigative reporter. This time he just put on glasses like Clark Kent in Superman. He just put on glasses. Like he didn't go really deep undercover with a huge bombastic, outrageous disguise. And yet this person who works in cybersecurity didn't recognize one of the most popular reporters in the world. And he also freely answered some of the most obvious questions out there about his job, his employer, and his employer's environment, which is ridiculous to say the least. I almost debate if this is on purpose, because it's so ridiculous. So it's about 13 and a half minutes long, so we'll just play the first minute or two. But again, it's astonishing how inept this person is. And granted, to his credit, he's not inebriated by drinking a Bud Light. That makes sense if you have that poor taste and judgment. But nevertheless, he does look to be enjoying a glass of wine.
I work for the White House. So you're pretty high up in the government.
Yeah, I'm fairly high up. I'm good at keeping secrets, and so I manage 2 federal agencies, the State Department and USAID.
So when you say it's like security, like you're protecting
the networks of the federal agencies you give all your information to.
The mission is to protect information.
And we are like the...
His job is to protect the information for the most important buildings and important government entities on the planet. And yet he's out having a drink with what he thinks, I don't know if he thinks it's a random stranger or again, I can't fathom him being that dumb. But again, I'll keep playing.
President's voice when we go into meetings in terms of discussing and promoting the president's priorities.
Is he going to be the nominee?
Yes. And she will be the vice president nominee.
Yeah,
There was a debate about removing her from the ticket, but sadly they didn't. She can't keep black staff. They quit on her in mass.
So if you can't hear that, the White House cybersecurity gentleman, he said, let me see here really quick, rewind it.
Sadly they didn't.
So he's saying she can't keep black staff. They quit on her en masse, which that's a debate in and of itself, since her family's, I believe, from India and Jamaica. That's a huge story in and of itself for a lot of folks.
Black staff. They quit on her in mass.
But with him,
I know.
He's got dementia.
He's definitely slowing down.
Well, they know that he has those issues.
I think so.
But they're not willing to say it.
Shows it. And
they're not willing to say it publicly.
And same thing with Kamala Harris. She's not popular, but you can't remove.
Yeah, she was so unsuccessful. She dropped out of the primary, I believe, all those years ago when she was attempting to run for president. She couldn't even win in California, which, again, of all the places to win, she had a political career in California.
The first black lady to be vice president from the goddamn presidential ticket. Like, what kind of message are you going to send to, like, the African-American voter? How would you spin that? People would be like, what the fuck? Like, she's a woman and she's multiracial. I think that they're really concerned.
And again, she wasn't, when Biden came out with this criteria of who he's going to pick for the VP, he didn't say, I'm going to pick the absolute best candidate, someone who has the most acumen, someone who has the best track record. He chose based on race and gender, which is illegal to choose someone for a job given that criteria. You're literally discriminating against whole swaths of candidates who maybe were better qualified but don't just happen to have a certain melanin in their skin or they're born with certain parts. So yeah, that's another point of contention for a lot of folks is, what has Kamala Harris done? How are they going to spin this? And again, that's the detriment of identity politics. I mean, again, it's by the thousandth time I always say, pick the best man for the job. Take every resume, man, woman, whatever race, religion. Take all the resumes, whoever's the best qualifications. But again, perhaps I'm just an old soul in that regard.
But they won't say it. I guess if they say it publicly,
Correct.
that Biden
They
can't say it publicly.
No, they got to
Do
toe
they
the
say it
line.
privately? But they won't say it publicly.
Correct.
That Biden
They can't say it
they can't say it publicly.
No, they got to
Do
toe
they
the
say it
line.
privately?
It's almost as if a whole swath of Americans never read that old story about the emperor not having clothes, which I think could be said on not just apply to this situation, but many sides of the political aisle as well.
I'm just telling you what I've heard. Like,
You're just telling me the truth.
Does it make sense? No, but that's what I've heard. I've had a meeting with Michelle Obama at one point when I was an intern, and someone asked her, will you ever run for office? And she said no, emphatically.
Really?
I've seen all the shit my husband has had to go through, and that does not interest me. People would be like, well, I don't think we should have to get the vaccine. I'm like, you're not going to get the vaccine, and then you're going to go expose my family in the hospital to your vaccinated COVID. Like,
so you work in cybersecurity for the White House, and my question is, what are you doing on a meeting with James O'Keefe? What type of cybersecurity operation are you guys running over there?
we're running a good cybersecurity operation.
Obviously not.
And they go through it for another about 13 and a half minutes. And again, not only is this I guess we shouldn't be too astonished from a political perspective that they're having these types of issues that many people have been talking about for years. But talk about an epic fail in terms of cybersecurity, just all security. Like, this person works at the White House. They have pretty much unlimited resources at their disposal. He couldn't take a pic, like, they couldn't run a background check on the person he's going to meet. They couldn't check, I don't know, they didn't check the email, the picture of the guy. I can't help but think this person either doesn't care that they're going to be exposed in this regard, or they're just stupid. Or maybe it's on purpose. I can't fathom it. But of course, this is going viral. Last week it got over 20.4 million views and 105,000 likes, which is quite a few to say the least. And a good reminder to click that like button on this particular video, because I would greatly appreciate it. Now, going to the comments section, well, the first one comes from Zeno. He says, quote, "The disguise is stellar. This guy was clueless." And it's a picture of James O'Keefe juxtaposed with another picture of himself, but with glasses on. They got 9.7 thousand likes, and yes, 110% accurate. He didn't change his hair. He didn't grow like an extra long beard or anything. And unfortunately, in terms of fashion, I don't even think he suited up as all men should, obviously. Though I think he was wearing, not the blazer, the vest. So I'll give him a little credit in that regard. But yeah, it's as ridiculous as Superman, where all James O'Keefe did was put on some different glasses. And yet this person didn't realize that. Now, James O'Keefe responded to that saying, quote, "The manner matters more than your disguise," unquote, getting 4.5 thousand likes. Roger Stone said, quote, "This guy is so dumb he didn't recognize James O'Keefe, who is not so heavily disguised, but simply wearing glasses." That got 10,000 likes. James O'Keefe did respond with a glasses wearing emoji, got 7.7 thousand likes for that. Patrick Bet David says, "Wild," getting 6,000 likes. Let's see here. Shipwrecked Crew says, quote, I have very good cause to believe that the comments attributed to Michelle Obama are 100% true, based on my own solid source on that subject. She has no interest in returning to the life they lived from 2009 to 2016, unquote. And they got 1,000 likes. Though, I mean, in terms of capability, in terms of the odds, I think she is overwhelmingly popular. So I still wouldn't hold it out of the realm of possibility. I think, again, anything can happen, especially in politics. Paul Zazupa said, quote, there you have it. Biden is out and Kamala is in. No one should be surprised. God help us. That got 934 likes. Scrolling down here. Luke Zaleski, who is what is he? He is very much a leftist, politically speaking. Though I do follow him just because I want to gain as many perspectives as possible, and he's always commenting on the things they would cover. So, a little contrarian statement. He brews to the surface, and he says, quote, wow, someone had an opinion about politics, and if you already ignorantly believe that there's a secret unified cabal of officials in complete unison running the government in a plot against you, this person, quote, breaking ranks will only confirm, quote, they're all in on it together, unquote. LOL, getting 110 likes. Let me analyze that. If you are already ignorantly believe that there's a secret, when he says a secret cabal, I mean, again, I think people left and right side of the political aisle and in the middle, I think a lot of people, the consensus around Joseph Biden's is dementia, mental intellect decreasing over time. I don't think that's a very controversial issue. Even people on CNN and traditionally very left-leaning news outlets are covering that topic. So it does beg the question: who's really calling the shots? If he has decreased his capability to choose and execute executive orders, or has he, or even just declined in that ability? So I think that's a fair question to ask, who else might be influencing those decisions? That is partially why you build out your cabinet and you have people around you, just like a CEO reports to a board of directors. So it'll be interesting to see or know who has the most influence on him and his decisions these days. I don't think that's a controversial question to ask, really. But nevertheless, going back to the comment section. Let's see here. Do one or two more here. Colin Rugg simply said, freeze! And it's a South Park gif of the police captain dressed up as a woman. And it's busting a gentleman trying to hire a woman of the night. That got 753 likes. Scrolling down to a couple more here. Damian Elamani says, quote, oh my god, getting 1.6 thousand likes. Libercrat Media TM says, quote, here we go 100%, and it's a gif of Biden, or a picture of Biden, and the text on the picture says, quote, things could be worse, re-elect me and I'll prove it, unquote. And that got 3.6 thousand likes. Let's see here. Scrolling down, a lot of memes and gifs of Biden. Let's see here. This perhaps is the most entertaining one, or one of the most entertaining ones. Libercrat Media TM says, quote, so I guess I have a new plan. And it's a picture of Biden with orange skin and yellowish hair, and it says, quote, realizing his campaign is dying, Biden tries a new strategy, unquote. It got 2.3 thousand likes. Let's see here. Ziano says, quote, another dollar added to the I told you so jar for conservatives. Every alt-right conspiracy theory has proven to be true. Add these to the list. Conspiracy theories are really just predictions. I can't wait to see how the White House plans to spin this, unquote. Getting 2.4 thousand likes. Libercrat TM has a picture of Kamala, and the text is a quote from her, and she says, today is today, yesterday was yesterday, tomorrow will be tomorrow. So live today so the future today will be as the past today. Unquote. Words. Not inspirational, but they are technically words. It sounds like a really rudimentary rap song, a rap lyric. I won't dare attempt to put that into a song yet, but that did get 7.1 thousand likes. So again, it's fascinating to see the culture shift as more and more people are starting to critique the administration. But again, let's see here. We'll do one more. Chief Nerd says, quote, this guy is a fortress of information security, unquote, getting 1.1 thousand likes. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if they maybe put some new policies saying don't talk to random reporters or don't take random lunches with people you don't know. And again, this guy works in security. I can't emphasize this enough. It's almost unfathomable how foolish or mentally vacuous he is, which makes me it makes me wonder, was it on purpose? Like, let me know in the comments. I'd be fascinated to hear what your thoughts are on this scenario. But it is interesting to see the continued shift and more people starting to critique the administration from a cultural perspective. But I would say what will happen in the next upcoming election, time shall tell. Other interesting cultural news, you have Bud Light hiring comedian Shane Gillis for a partnership. This as Bud Light desperately tries to get their old fans and old customers back. And they have not been successful. They spent millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars on new partnerships, new marketing materials. And yet, when you look at all the comments on social media, look at the sales figures, the data, they have not really recovered at all. Their sales for Bud Light are usually still down about 30% week over week compared to the same fiscal period prior to all the controversy with where they hired Dylan Mulvaney for $185,000 for a couple pictures and a video to be a brand ambassador. And geez Louise, that certainly did backfire. We shall always remember Alyssa Heiderscheld, the brilliant marketing leader behind that decision. Although she is, oddly enough, not on LinkedIn anymore. Perhaps she's ashamed from her business ineptitudes. But nevertheless, they've been trying to dig themselves out of the hole that they've created and saying how could they maybe win back their fans. So they've been doing things like, paying the UFC $100 million to be the official beer of the UFC. And now they've done what I thought would be the highly improbable, some would say the impossible. They hired Shane Gillis, who is a very famous stand-up comedian. He's on Joe Rogan all the time. And many people consider him middle or right. And he's famously, in one of my favorite examples of, don't be too disappointed if you get fired in life because it could be the best thing that ever happens to you. He actually tried out to be on SNL. He got a job offer from Saturday Night Live. Then they discovered he made a pejorative joke, I believe, around the Asian community, and they fired him. He didn't even have like a first full day on SNL, and yet now he's infinitely more popular and I would argue more talentable than any of those mentally vacuous people who still work at SNL. I think there's 5 people left and 3 people watch it. Maybe 4. 5 if there's a TV left on in the middle of the night, if you want to go by those numbers. But nevertheless, they have not been funny in decades. Now, Shane Gillis, on the opposite, he's hilarious, and he makes fun of everyone equally, and which is what I think comedy should always be. Now, interestingly enough, with Shane Gillis, I almost think they really didn't have to, in terms of when the Bud Light controversy hit, Joe Rogan and the guys on his popular show, I believe Saving the Parks, is one of the most popular repeating episodes where they have a couple of their favorite buddies on. You got Ari Shaffir, you got Shane Gillis, Mark Norman, Joe Rogan, and I think one more may elude me, but nevertheless, that's the main gang, and they just hang out and shoot the shit, so to say. And no matter what happened, they always have Bud Light on the table. And as far as I know, they've never paid Joe Rogan for that, which, of all the things they should have sponsored, or of all the money, like, that is a lot of free marketing right there. To have Joe Rogan drinking a Bud Light and still drinking it post Dylan Mulvaney controversy, it's hard to quantify how much of an impact that probably had on saving some of their sales and keeping them somewhat in the social cultural spotlight in a positive way, where every other celebrity, especially in the middle and right, they were making fun of Bud Light. There's a lot of material to work with, don't get me wrong, but it's become a joke. And to this day, if you see someone at a bar, they're ordering a Bud Light, not only do you think they have no taste buds or just rudimentary taste, but you also kind of wonder, are they trying to start a political conversation? Is this a signal, so to say, as Bud Light inserted themselves into politics and tried to sell beer to children by hiring someone whose average audience was about 15 years old, which many would say would also be not just mentally vacuous, but morally vacuous as well. Now, Shane Gillis, he stuck by Bud Light, even though they never paid him a dime, or a penny, for that matter. So he's always drinking the beer on the show. He's drinking it when he's doing stand-up. That brand's with him all the time. So it'll be interesting to see if this changes how much this matters, but he was already advertising that for them for free, basically. They weren't paying him, but he still stuck by that brand. Which, now that I think about it, him and Joe Rogan are probably the only famous people I know who stuck by that brand and continue to drink it. A lot of the other celebrities who are more in the middle of the right, you had Kid Rock famously shoot cases of Bud Light with a full auto MP5, which, geez Louise, if you want a full auto transferable MP5, those are going for like $60,000. Partially because they had to be manufactured and registered before the law of 1986 passed. Of course, they didn't pass in 1984. That'd be too prolific or too accurate to dystopian novels. But nevertheless, Shane Gillis came out with this photo last week on the, as you, I believe they call it the Instagram, which, disappointingly enough, has nothing to do with graham crackers if you're a sweet tooth. But it is a fascinating platform nevertheless. Now, one of the first pictures is his Shane Gillis wearing a Bud Light hat, giving a thumbs up, and he's filling up, at least to be a glass with Bud Light from a giant what do you call it, a giant beer brewing device? Not the kettle. Nevertheless, the giant beer holding apparatus, and it even says in bold print, which again, partially for SEC or is it SEC? No, FCC. I forgot the regulatory body that has to cover advertising. I think it is the Federal Communications. That might be it. You have to have a disclaimer. That's why this show is sponsored by Topic Technologies. I click that button. I say, hey, we're sponsored by that. That's how this show could afford to be made. Now, Shane Gillis says right on top, paid partnership with Bud Light. And he says, quote, excited to announce my partnership with Bud Light, hashtag Bud Light Partner. That is going to be astonishing. Now, going to the comments, a couple of the first feedback. One comes from Mike Cox. He says, quote, Bud Light trying hard not to be gay, unquote. That got 19,615 likes, which also goes to show you the sheer sample size of, let me see here, Shane Gillis. Going to his profile, he has 1.2 million followers, which is quite a few to say the least. Now, Seth LMFAO says, quote, he's brewing them at night, getting 20,069 likes. Perhaps he is also making grilled cheese sandwiches, allegedly, at night. Inside joke if you follow Shane Gillis. Young Cracknick says, quote, shout out to Bud Light for working with the disabled, unquote, getting 11,323 likes. Fam Guy Rolden says, effing Shane Gillis is trans, unquote, getting 11,199 likes. Jackman Gown says, quote, kinda gay, Shane. I saw this post and said, wow, kinda gay. That was Shane Gillis, bar none, has the best Trump impression. Jamie Foxx probably close second. And that was the vernacular of that. I can kind of tell he's trying to go for Shane's Trump impression, which this might hurt your earballs. So, spoilers, or not spoiler, but a caution. But I will attempt to do the Trump impression with Shane Gillis' text to go, quote, kinda gay, Shane. I saw this post and thought, wow, kinda gay, unquote. I'm sorry, but the attempt simply had to be made. And hopefully you at least cracked a modicum of a smile. Now, Mark Norman actually chimed in and he just said, really? Oh, that's clever. Okay, so he literally just said Dylan Mulvaney, unquote. They got 7,156 likes. Rob Biglin says, quote, I'm not gay no more. I'm delivered. What? Unquote. That got 726 likes. Cindy Shin says, quote, sending hate from Australia, unquote. Getting 166 likes. You really got to do something specific to piss off those Australians. Let's see here. Motto Memes says, quote, paying people that we like doesn't cover up their sins, unquote, getting 797 likes. Nate Levine says, quote, good for Bud Light, sponsoring another trans person, very progressive, unquote, getting 4,374 likes. Lucas Extreme Arms says, quote, you're definitely cooler than a Transformer, unquote, getting 609 likes. Papa Didi says, quote, Shane gonna single-handedly make Bud Light not gay again, unquote, getting 3,146 likes. So it'll be interesting to see then kind of going, this is hilarious, someone's prediction, but Shane was actually on the podcast with Joe Rogan a while back saying, I wish they'd sponsor me. And Joe Rogan, interestingly enough, someone who does podcasting and is not in the industry, he had the idea, not crazy outlandish or original idea, but to have Bud Light sponsored by Shane Gillis. So hilariously enough, that gal who worked in marketing at Bud Light for her whole career destroyed the company, again, by 30% loss in their sales for Bud Light alone. Billions of dollars lost. Terrible. The biggest business blunder of the year, bar none, in 2023. Probably 2024, it'll carry over. Her idea, destroy the company. Joe Rogan may even save the company. We'll see what the sales figures go like after this endorsement. But this is a fun little clip.
Really? Yeah.
Let's see. Well, wait. It's hard to do the short.
This is the first time I got called gay at a bar, dude. Really? Every time I drink. It's how we talk, dude. Yeah. It's not gonna truly deter me. If I order Bud Light and someone's like, what are you, gay? I'm like, yeah.
No.
I'll suck your dick, dude. I'm gonna fucking blow you right now, you fucking bitch.
Do you think Bud Light's gonna bounce back?
Yeah.
I think so.
I think they will with your help.
I think this story
I
is.
think Bud Light needs to just send me fucking $50,000.
Just hire Chuck Norris.
Just give him a case.
Give me $20.
Hire Chuck Norris.
I sell 1,000 Bud Lights every weekend. It's the first time I got called gay at a bar, dude.
So, pretty good. It'll be interesting to see. Because, again, they tried brand endorsements before. They're working with the UFC. They have not, interestingly enough, said anything against Sean Strickland, who's one of the most popular UFC champs, who's said a lot of controversial things that prior would have had Bud Light and that company sweating bullets, so to say. But he said a lot of things that some people would interpret as anti-trans or quote-unquote not being an ally. And Bud Light, interestingly enough, has not put out a disclaimer or a statement saying we don't agree with him, we're just sponsoring the UFC. Which, again, in terms of PR and marketing, that is extremely rare. Usually if anyone says anything controversial, they say, hey, we're supporting the brand, not the person's actual, we're sponsoring UFC, not the individual fighters, words. Like, normally there'd be a huge PR team going and putting out what they might perceive as fires for that. They haven't done that. So it'll be interesting to see, what actually happens with Bud Light? Culturally speaking, their sales are still bad. Social media, they're still usually ratioed beyond all belief. But maybe the sales will go up a little bit. Or maybe they'll just stay 30% low forever and that'll be the quote-unquote new norm. It'll be interesting to see, but as I always say, time shall tell. Now going over to the political part of the podcast, you have Ron DeSantis calls Ilhan Omar to be expelled after she leads Somalia over the U.S., and Ron DeSantis goes viral, as youth might say. Now this is from Ron DeSantis' personal X-Twitter account, and I wrote these, again, it was last week, but the statistics, it got over 3.1 million views and 71,000 likes within 24 hours. And again, in terms of Ron DeSantis, this is one of the most, I'd say, politically aggressive statements he's made in his career. Usually he's more akin to someone like Jeb, maybe a little more aggressive than Jeb Bush and his Turtles. And again, where was this on the campaign field? That's what I was wondering. Now, this is in response to, let's see here. This came from Mariana Medvin over on X Twitter, and she says, before this video, Ilhan Omar, an American congressman, tells Somalians that she is Somalian first and Muslim second, and, oh no, America wasn't even mentioned. Oh, and she says her primary job in Congress is to protect Somali interest. So I wonder if this is transcribed, or I see the text on the video, so I'm not sure if it's in English or another language. So we'll play it and see if we can understand it.
Annaga haddii aan nahay dad Soomaali ah.
No, not. So she is saying, let me rewind it, I'll read it to you. I'll save your earballs. She says, we are Somalians. We love each other. There are areas of friction that will lead us to kill each other, but in reality, we are an organized society. Brothers and sisters, I don't know if that's a reference to her brother that she married, but back to her quote. She says, brothers and sisters, people of the same blood, people who know they are Somalians first, Muslims second, who protect one another to each other's aid and to the aid of other Muslims too. A couple days ago, we heard some people call themselves Somalis or claim to be Somalis have signed an MOU with Ethiopia to open up the seas. I don't even know what that means. Oh yeah, we have an agreement. Uncomfortable laughter. I'm sorry, my grasp on Somali is what? Is atrocious? What? How pathetic? That's just pathetic as all hell. Her main priority is Somalia, and she can't speak the language, and she's from... What? Again, I don't say my main priority is Cuba, and I know how to speak Spanish fluently. I know a little bit because my family was from there, but I'm also not saying it's Cuba first, because, well, no one would. But, yeah, talk about bizarre. Alright, so uncomfortable laughter. She says, many Somalians have personally called me to encourage me to speak to the U.S. government to thwart the MOU? MOU. Let's see. And help Somalia. They wanted to know what the U.S. government could do for Somalia and to ensure Mao never turns to a full dictatorship. My answer to Somalians was that the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They will do what they want and nothing else. They will follow our orders, and that will be how we will safeguard our interest and where does it say that? Interest of Somalia. We Somalians must have confidence that the U.S., that we call the U.S., we live in the U.S., pay taxes in the U.S., and have real voice. The U.S. is a country where one of your daughters, myself, is a congressman. Oh, speaking too fast. Congress to represent your interest. As long as I am in Congress, Somalia will never be in danger. Its waters, #Indian Ocean, will not be stolen by Ethiopia or others. Probably sounds a lot better, their voice. No, I can't pronounce. That's more confusing. The U.S. will not dare support anyone against Somalia to steal our land or oceans. Let's see here. Sleep in comfort knowing I'm here to protect the interests of Somalia from inside the U.S. system. Yeah. The woman you sent to Congress is working day and night to protect your interest. She knows your plight and that of Somalia. I'm going to stop that quote really quick. There's something weird about someone referring to themselves in the third person. I don't know. Maybe it works in the speech. To me, it always seemed weird. I am as concerned about Somalia as you are. Together, we will protect the interests of Somalia. President Hassan Sheikh, the current president of Somalia, has done a remarkable job in looking after Somalia. Mr. President, you have done an excellent job, and we are happy about it. And she says #fighting Ethiopia. Oh, fighting Ethiopia and Somaliland. You spoke to Somalians dispersed across the world that you are there to look after Somalia. However, weak Somalia is, or as people say, we Somalians are resilient people who fight against all odds. People who love their country, Somalia. We are the people who will never allow someone else to steal our land. Kind of ironic they changed the flag in Minnesota to be Somalia, but nevertheless. Therefore, I congratulate Somali Americans and other Somalians across the globe for showing remarkable level of unity against Ethiopia and Somaliland land. Let's see here. Somalia is for Somalians only, as over 45% of Somalian population, not even ethnic Somalis. What? Unquote that for a second. I mean, in Minnesota, there's an exponentially increasing number of Somalians, but they changed the flag, and partially a lot of people are saying that's the symbol that they conquered the state. But so why is it okay in that instance, but not this instance? But I guess perhaps I'm using too much intellect for her. All right, we'll go back to her speech. Almost done, I promise. It's rough. Let's see here. Keep going. Somalia is one nation, all brothers and sisters. Unquote. I was going to say. Or husbands in her case. Unquote. Our land cannot be divided. Ethiopia and Kenya have stolen and continue to occupy the Somali region state, which belongs to Somalia. We will liberate the occupied territory stolen from, i.e. Somalia, Djibouti, Somaliland, and northern eastern province in Kenya that belong to Greater Somalia. What remains of Somalia cannot be further divided. Thank you for inviting me. Goodbye. That was extremely long and painful speech. But it was a speech, nevertheless. And yeah, it is fascinating to see the importance she puts on that other country. And can't but think I know where the comments are going to go. But I guess perhaps I'll just throw in my 3 cents first. Or, I mean, it used to be 2 cents, but it got to be, 40-year hyperinflation, got to be 3 cents. Should be, although it is still free to click the subscribe button. Now, Somalia. One of the things that a lot of people are bringing up is, with Somalia, what interest does the U.S. government have and U.S. people have with that country, that region, and how could it be beneficial? And it'll be interesting to see, do we get involved in another conflict, or does the U.S. send resources there? It'll be interesting to see in that regard, but that historically speaking, I believe we have in the region and the area specifically as well. I don't know if the American populace has appetite for another war. Again, the U.S. is fighting multi-proxy wars. I mean, you have the whole Russia-Ukraine conflict, where we've sent over $195 billion, not just cash, but also weapons and aid to fight that particular front. You also have the cartels in Mexico moving forward and wreaking all havoc in that regard. The U.S. is always perpetually in conflict, and it'll be interesting to see with the resource allocation what type of support. And again, she does have a point in terms of the U.S. populace and their input does have a, I believe, a role in where Congress chooses. Granted, they usually ignore us, but I think it is a contributing factor. I can't help but think most of the Congress will say, why should we get involved in this particular instance? What is the U.S. interest in this country? Some people are making the debate. Some people are trying to, I believe it's a false equivalence in regards to people are saying, well, we're helping Israel. Why, what is our instance there? And I mean, when you look at my background, most of my background is business, and it's one of those things where, especially Israel, there's a long-term business relationships. They're one of the most advanced cybersecurity or places on the planet. They research, develop, manufacture some of the best software suites and services in cybersecurity particularly. You also have the defense industry with Elbit Systems being headquartered there. They have a U.S. headquarters in Fort Worth, Texas. Most famously known for making the helmet for the F-35 Lightning II, which gives you a full immersive technology, which was revolutionary at the time and still is. So, I mean, in that regard, there's much more. And then you have the cultural mixture as well, and the long-time allyship between the nations, and strategically Israel being in place. So I think when you look at kind of the business justification and the moral justification, or why is the U.S. helping in that instance and not others, I understand that a little bit more. Now, I'll be interested to see with Somalia. I mean, historically, if you look at their exports, I don't think they're not necessarily a trading ally, so to say. If you look, oh, geez Louise. Unless the laptop freezes. What? One more time. Really? Let's see. The most recent exports from Somalia, which is 2020. The figures are 2021. Sheep and goats were $201 million. Gold was $94.4 billion. Bovine was $34 million. Seedly oils, $34.8 million. Insect resins at $23.9 million. Let me see here. What is the main export to Somalia? I'm curious. Okay, it is livestock bananas, mostly sent to other Arabian countries in the area. So again, it'll be interesting to see, but that's why I'm gonna excuse me. That's why I would guess there's not going to be a lot of U.S. support for that particular conflict to get involved with. But maybe I'm wrong with that assessment. Maybe I'm out of left court, as the sports balls might say. Let's go in the comments and find out. Let's see here. Paul DeZupsa said, quote, agreed, expel, neutralize, and deport. Here's a shorter clip of Ilhan prioritizing Somalia over the U.S., and he says, a shocking video. She's saying that she's making the U.S. government take orders from Somalia. And she says, quote, the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. And again, we just transcribed that New York a minute ago. And they got 715 likes. Justin Grage says, quote, as a Minnesotan, I approve this message, unquote. They got 1.5 thousand likes. Let's see here. Right Angle News Network says, quote, every single American hating... Oh, jeez Louise. Let me rephrase that, or let me make it so it's not awkwardly phrased. They said, quote, every single American hating politician that is currently running our country into the ground needs to be expelled in the U.S. and sent far away. We're done playing games with people who want to bring down America and rebuild it into their inverted version. Unquote, getting 525 likes. Proud Elephant says, quote, couldn't agree more, Governor, getting 456 likes. Let's see here. Cultist LS says, quote, if you won 2024, I have confidence that you have found a way to force the squad out of office. And there's a picture of Ron DeSantis at a podium saying, miss me yet, in the font at the bottom. That got 226 likes. Banana Republican says, quote, 100%, why does this Somalian get to sit in one of the highest offices of the land and use her power to siphon off resources for her own selfish interest, unquote. That got 491 likes. Well, I mean, her perspective is, she's importing a lot of her own people into Minnesota. That's what the Minnesotan citizen populace is wanting. But again, that's also not in Minnesota. It's across the globe. Let's see here. Ironhead says, quote, thank you, Ron DeSantis. I support this message. Getting 210 likes. Leftism says, quote, this is the way. I'd love to see another politician call for the same thing. This is America, not Somalia. If she wants to put Somalian interests first, she can go back to Somalia and do it there. Unquote. They got 854 likes. Unfiltered Boss says, this is the way, unquote, getting 212 likes. 8th Century Woodchipper says, quote, I'm sorry, I even jokingly heard you, quote, meatball, unquote. I got 488 likes. Let's see here. Pax Tube says, quote, we should do this to Israeli civilians in America, unquote, getting 905 likes. Though, my 3 cents, obviously we shouldn't, but let's see here. Landon Best says, quote, I understand free speech is a foreign concept to you, Ron. You didn't need to make it obvious, unquote, getting 509 likes, which, again, Ron says this, he says nothing about, it's not about free speech, it's about the resource allocation of the United States to other countries. Which, again, that's a debate to be had. That's what we do all the time. Well, supposedly, unfortunately, I kind of think the government has less and less, I was going to say, intellectual conversations. Let's be honest. It's mostly fighting matches, I can't help but think. But I can't help but think there's less and less debate. They just pass these omnibus packages to support all of their little causes, and they don't actually debate ideals or, have the best solutions brewed to the surface. As perhaps it's just rose-tinted glasses maybe they did back in the day. Do one or two more comments here. Let's see. Ty's Tough Talk says, quote, support Trump and make it happen. Otherwise, you're wasting everyone's time like you did last year, unquote. Actions, not words, Ron. Getting 90 likes. Let's see here. So still, let's see. We'll do one more here. Milkenya says, quote, if your allegiance is to Somalia first, be a servant of the people in Somalia, Ilhan. This is very as clear as day in my book. Will help you pack, unquote. That got 107 likes. So again, it'll be interesting to see. She's been a very polarizing political figure for years, and I mean, again, given her popularity in Minnesota, I doubt she'll ever actually be recalled or actually even lose in an upcoming election. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, will there be a debate on which resources we send to which countries? I mean, will there ever come a time, because again, anecdotally speaking, the past 12, 24 months, we've been sending a lot of resources, not so much fixing stuff in America. But it'll be interesting to see, does this impact the election? She's a member of the squad. She's a very prominent, very well-known Democrat. She is, as youth might say, viral. She's on the social media, very similar to AOC. So it'll be interesting to see, I mean, does that message from her resonate with most Americans, or does it actually help or detract from the big, 800-pound gorilla in the room, or the big elephant or donkey in the room, the upcoming 2024 election? We shall see, but as I always say, time shall tell. Other interesting political news, you have Vivek tweets, fire Ronna McDaniel, the head of the RNC, going viral. Now, this as she has accomplished not much. She's perhaps as successful as Kamala Harris in terms of her political successes and acumen. Ronna McDaniel is supposedly is the head of the Republican National Committee, supposedly helping Republicans win, which is something they historically don't do so much. And yet, after every failure in the midterms, the election, she still has a job, which perhaps is a great metaphor for the government in many respects. Keep failing, keep your job. Performance be damned. Now, he actually responded to something from the Gateway Pundit, and they have a picture of her, who, debatably, her smiling as awkward as Ron DeSantis or Dylan Mulvaney, or me for that matter. But nevertheless, the text from the Gateway Pundit said, quote, the Republican National Committee is looking at opening a credit line to help pay the bills and compensate for dismal recent fundraising levels. Ronna McDaniel and the RNC will discuss the unusual option this upcoming week at the winter meeting in Las Vegas. And there's a little text on the picture of her that says, Ronna McDaniel's cash-strapped RNC may open up a line of credit to help pay bills this election year, unquote. And Vivek simply said, fireronna.com, which actually goes to a fundraising mechanism. I think if it's not his, where's it go? So, it says for pay for, because I remember he had this a couple months back when he was still running for Republican nominee. And you simply say, should you fire her? And you give them your first name, last name, cell phone. It's just kind of a poll, I suppose. You're not raising campaign funds. But yeah, I was going to say, probably should fire her. She seems certainly inept beyond all belief. And I know a lot of people who are not donating to Republican candidates and the RNC because of their ineptitudes, of them losing again and again and again, also having a lot of rhinos who are pejoratively known as Republicans in name only. It's the same reason I personally don't donate to the National Rifle Association anymore. Maybe in a couple months as they find a new leader, but for many years I did get the life membership, I believe it was 2015, so that kind of time frame, because again, they're doing some good campaign for the Second Amendment, and I believe every human has the right to defend themselves and their family. Now, in terms of the NRA, they historically, they've done some great safety trainings, and I understand they do a lot of good in that regard, but when it comes to actually gaining rights for the Second Amendment, they've been sluggish. They even acquiesced, and in my opinion, they just bend over backwards all the time. They even supported the bump stock ban, which from a legal perspective and a technical perspective was a terrible, terrible precedent to set on the legal definition of a machine gun with the way the law was written. So again, they acquiesced to that and said, oh yeah, that's a good idea. You should do that. We approve of that. And time again, they seem to just not gain gun rights, but rather give them away. And a lot of people contribute that to Wayne LaPierre, the former head of the NRA, just being more interested in growing his personal wealth than actually gaining more rights for the Second Amendment community and the American people. And that being said, when the NRA will call me all the time, because again, I'm on their list, I made a donation all those years ago, and I got that membership, I always respectfully tell them, because again, some of these people are independent contractors, some of them are just trying to make a living, some of them do authentically want to gain rights for the Second Amendment, and I always respectfully tell them, I appreciate your call, I will donate again when Wayne LaPierre is no longer the leader of the National Rifle Association. And I tell them, hey, I don't donate because you guys have bent over backwards on bullet point A, B, and C. And I just say, where were you to help us get the suppressors off the NFA list? Where were you to help? Why would you support the bump stock? Where are you really gaining our rights? And don't get me wrong, they still do a little bit, but when I see who's gaining the most wins for that organization and for the people, the other nonprofits are a lot better. Gun Owners America is much better. The Firearms Policy Coalition is much more efficient. So I've seen it in real life, and I've talked to my friends where I asked them too, would you ever donate to the NRA? They say no, because they don't. It's Wayne LaPierre. The leader is failing. Now, contrast that with the RNC, same exact use case, same thing. It's the same instance where, why would I donate to something where they just keep losing? Even in instances where they should win by a landslide, there was supposed to be a red wave. It was nothing more than a red drizzle during the last midterms. I believe partially because they also had nominated some very inept candidates in some areas of the United States. But there's an age-old saying, Republicans rip winning out of the jaws of the leadership or something to that effect. And I can't but think, people are not donating to the RNC because of her leadership. Now, this is also a precarious situation because I believe Donald Trump actually endorsed her at one time. And he is one of the most popular, he's very, he's basically the most powerful figure in the Republican Party. So it'll be interesting to see, again, I feel like if Trump were to just come out and say, we get someone new, there'd be basically no pressure, there'd be no hesitation for the RNC to actually do that. And at this point, again, they're not raising the funds because they're not doing their job, in my opinion. So if they were to get rid of her, I think that would help out a lot. Although, perhaps, maybe I'm alone in this assessment. Maybe everyone else thinks she's a brilliant, successful person. Probably not, but let's dive into the comments and find out. Again, statistically speaking, this was posted couple days late to this. It actually posted last week. But I did write down the statistics within 24 hours. It got 535,000 views and 13,000 likes. So interestingly not as viral as Vivek's normal post on X Twitter, where he usually, I would say his average around 790,000 views, about maybe 20 to 58,000 likes for kind of a good average of all of his posts on social media. Now, one of the first comments comes from Paul Zazupa. He says, quote, President Trump can only do so much once he's in the White House. He needs a good Congress to support him and get what we need to get rid of Ronna McDaniel. She's a cancer to the GOP. It's time Ronna is fired, unquote. That got 95 likes. See here. The persistence says, quote, Vivek, have you ever thought of creating an alternative to the RNC? Would you, with the work you're doing with hashtag early vote action and TPA action, we could be a formidable force. The progress we're making in Pennsylvania is very exciting. Think about it, unquote, getting 2.1 thousand likes. And I think there's a lot of support for a third party in the United States. It's one of those things, it's very similar to business. The more options you have, the better. The more competition, the better the results. And geez Louise, that's a loud, obnoxiously loud notification. My battery is low, so I apologize as I scramble for the little mini cord. Plug that in there. But yeah, very similar to business. The reasons why we have some of the best products on the planet these days is because you have competition that brews innovation. It inspires the companies to keep the price competitive, come out with faster, better features. So yeah, I think we do that. We need that in politics. Now the issue is, you need a near improbable amount of money to do that. Because again, it is a business, and you need resources to allocate towards campaigning, getting the word out. I mean, if someone like Elon were to get into it, maybe. I mean, the most success we've ever seen is Ross Perot when he ran. And he a huge business success. He was a hero in Texas, built out EDS and multiple other organizations. So I say a fun reference to one of the science behind me is Electronic Data Systems, EDS. But even he only, with all his money and resources, all of his success, he only managed to win a couple states. So you would need a lot more resources to get to a third party realistically. Now that being said, I still think it's a good idea. I just don't. It's highly improbable. So that's why I think a lot of Americans, I think, are also, they have an appetite for new ideas and, someone who hasn't screwed them over so much, so to say. But again, I partially digress. Let's see here. Paul Marino says, quote, "I will not give a single penny to the RNC until she is gone. Hashtag Scott Pressler needs to take over as leadership. He has shown he is willing to put in the work and do the job as it should be done. Lead from the front, not from the basement," unquote. And that got 34 likes. Red Wave Press, who A+ for marketing, their profile picture is in fact of a red wave. Although, we'll say B- marketing. There should be a little printing press, a vintage one maybe in there, but nevertheless. The Red Wave Press said, quote, "The RNC could be in real trouble in 2024. We don't even have close to the same amount of funds as Democrats. We must win in 2024 to take our country back. Follow if you agree," unquote, getting 27 likes. And yeah, that's another big elephant in the room is the resource allocation. I mean, what was it? What election was it? Where Mark Zuckerberg and his wife contributed $400 million to myriad of politicians and political organizations to support their political ideals. That's a lot of resources from one person. The Republican Party needs a lot more resources. So it'll be interesting to see how much money can they raise with the current leadership around McDaniel, whatever her name is. But yeah, that's again, you need to have resources to run a campaign, and it does take money. Bulldog for Vivek says, quote, it's a screenshot of Ronna McDaniel looking awkward. She says, it says, "Fire Ronna, add your name." I got 20 likes. Sir Majesty says, quote, "Putting Scott Pressler," and I got 28 likes. Honest Sabe says, quote, "We need a new party. The RNC is clearly too resistant to change," getting 112 likes. I don't know if it's resistance to change or resistance to just doing a lot or, stuff. It's so disappointing. It seems like throughout my lifetime, you just get lucky. You might get a little bit of a tax break, which, again, fiscally speaking, yeah, I want more. Everyone should want more tax breaks. Less taxes, the better. But yeah, it seems in terms of other significant topics and ideals, they're not really moving the ball forward in that regard. And an overwhelming majority of the responses, they're getting between 0 and 5 likes. They're all pretty much the same. Talking about, yeah, no one wants her in charge. Why is she still have a job? And yeah, the RNC, that's going to be the big elephant in the room. It'll be interesting to see, what happens at the end of the day. Because, again, the current formula for the RNC is not working. People are not donating it to anymore. People barely believe in the organization. Even with Trump at the helm, because presumably with all the data we have now, he'll be a Republican nominee. I mean, it's just, mathematically, it's all the odds are in his favor. I don't know what the Las Vegas odds are if you want to put money on Nikki Haley, but I can't help but think the odds would be astronomical. But it'll be interesting to see. As I always say, time shall tell. Now going over to the business blunder of the day, you have Peloton stock nearly crashing 23% last week after the holiday sales came in, and they are not doing great. Now, interestingly enough, let's pull up their long-term stock trend. If I could spell it, moderately helps. Come on now. Oh, come on. So, long-term, and again, the stock went down to about $4.31 per share, which is less than the price of a cup of coffee. Actually, it's a third of the price of a cup of coffee at Starbucks. But nevertheless, if you look at their long-term trend, over the past 5 years, their stock has lost 82.94%, which is not great. The past year, their stock is down 73.69%. Year to date, granted, only been about a month. It's down 26%. This past 6 months is half off, down 55.03%. Yeah, it is. And then last week went down 26.41% at one point, which is abysmal and scary to say the least if you're an investor there. Now, Peloton was perhaps one of the best companies in terms of going viral and having a huge sales spike during the pandemic lockdowns. They make the very fancy bike where you actually have a little computer screen bolted onto it, and you have an online instructor to help you bike faster, I suppose. I can't help but think it'd probably be worth more if they were to give you a little more feedback, but nevertheless, they encourage you to bike faster. And there's a hit. Thousands, millions of people went out and they bought these things, and these bikes are thousands of dollars. And of course, they have a subscription, which, again, that is the unfortunate, in my opinion, for many things. Everything is as a service, which for business makes sense. It provides you with month-to-month revenue, allows you to reinvest in the company. For these, you can pay more instructors to teach, you can increase the software capabilities, yada, yada. I understand why that's the big trend in business these days. Now, for consumers, do you really want a subscription for a bike? Well, fewer people these days. Now, they note that they also cut their annual forecast due to the demand faltering. And this is thanks to Kaniki Dika over at Yahoo Finance. Now, the company now expects their full year 2024 revenue to be between 2.68 billion and 2.75 billion, down from the previous forecast of 2.7 billion and 2.8 billion. Now, looks like a stock analyst or senior analyst over at Insider Intelligence, Zach Standler, said, quote, "In lowering its guidance, Peloton is acknowledging that the pivot from the hardware-focused business to a subscription-based business is rocky." Looks like, and in terms of how many subscribers, they noted that the company ended with 3 million connected fitness subscribers in the second quarter, about a 1% increase from a year earlier, above FactSet estimates of 2.99 million. So that is terrible growth, which, again, silver lining, the user base isn't dramatically decreasing yet. I also can't help but think when times get extremely tough, which I suspect we will have tough times, that's one of the easiest things to trim for your budget is the Peloton subscription. Because again, I think there's a couple of free things you can do on the device in terms of you can still bike on it, have like a free workout. You just can't see your instructor tell you to bike faster and encourage you like that. But yeah, I can't help but think that's the easiest thing to cut from your budget. You don't need to see Sally or whoever's on the bike that day. Now, yeah, Sandler also said, quote, "While it delivered better than expected gains in paid connected fitness subscribers, there are plenty of potential speed bumps ahead." They also know that it is also betting on a boost from the reintroduction of a high-end Tread Plus priced at $5,995 2 years after sales were temporarily halted due to safety concerns. So like a $6,000 treadmill, which, yeah, I would never buy since Peloton is, in my opinion, just overpriced disposable products. Now, incidentally enough, or hilariously enough, ironically enough, they did buy out Precor, which makes what I believe is the best commercial-grade treadmills on the planet, bar none, which is why I have one. And mine is pretty old and still works like a champ, partially because there's very little technology in it, so there's less failure vectors on it for things to go wrong. And again, with 2024, with unprecedented economic uncertainty, political uncertainty, how many people are going out and buying a $6,000? Again, you have to pay sales tax, so really $6,600 plus shipping, maybe $7,000 for a treadmill. That's, again, not commercial grade. I could understand getting a Precor treadmill, which will last you a lifetime. If it's individual use, with proper maintenance, it's going to last you a quarter century, easy. But it'll be interesting to see. They're saying, there's faltering demand. Now, company says expects the third quarter revenue or come in between 700 million and 725 million. Below the analyst expected 753.8 million. They also know that revenue fell 6.2% to 743 million, beating expectations. Now, Peloton now expects to generate positive cash flow in Q4, but said it would fall short of achieving positive free cash flow the full year. And interestingly enough, they are just releasing an option for you to, is it lease to own or just rent a bike? So you just pay a subscription for the software and the hardware. So it'll be interesting to see, but their stock is crashing. They're not looking great. And it is, at the end of the day, a luxury item, which, again, when you're looking at hard times, No one needs a Peloton. There's also competition now. They were an industry leader. They were one of the, that's why they were rewarded by the free market. A lot of people bought them. They were early adopters, and they set the trend. While they may not be, I don't know if they're officially the very first interactive bicycle, they're the first mass-produced one and the best at marketing it. So for all intents and purposes, we'll say the best category. A lot of people say they invented the category of these interactive workout devices. That was a couple years ago. Now they have competition. A lot of the legacy manufacturers, I know Nordic Track introduced their own, as well as, I believe it was Life Fitness and a couple other manufacturers. So now there are other options. At the time, there wasn't. So now you have increased competition, increased economic uncertainty, increased political uncertainty, and you also have a lot of people being laid off too in multiple different business vectors or multiple different industries rather. So it'll be interesting to see. But again, with all the decisions they're making, it certainly isn't going well. And I just can't but think this is going to be a rough year for them. And having their stock crash about 24% in a day last week, that certainly is the business blunder of the day. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of February, so click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a comment and a thumbs up and thumbs down is a great way to give me some additional feedback so I can know how to make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight,